2 hours. She sat in that boat, alone, watching the sun climb higher in a winter sky, knowing her husband's body was beneath her, sinking into the dark water of Lake Coeur d'Alene. 2 full hours before she reached for her phone, before she dialed 911, before she started performing. And when rescuers finally pulled Larry Isenburg from that freezing lake 2 weeks later, when the medical examiner began the autopsy, when they tested his blood, they discovered something that changed everything. Larry Isenburg didn't drown. He was murdered by the woman the community called Volunteer of the Year, the woman 8 children called Mom, the woman Larry Isenburg called Soulmate. Picture it. February 13th, 2018. The air is so cold your lungs burn when you breathe. Lake Coeur d'Alene stretches out like black glass under a sky just beginning to lighten. It's 5:47 a.m. Larry Isenburg, 68 years old, retired lumber executive, a man who spent his entire life teaching his kids about integrity and hard work, climbs into a small boat with his wife, Laurie. They're going to watch the sunrise together, a romantic gesture. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day. He trusts her completely. Larry has no idea that Laurie has been Googling drowning and deep water currents for weeks. He has no idea she's altered his will, handwritten changes that would steal 80% of his life savings from his own children. He has no idea that in a few hours, federal investigators will expose his wife as a thief who embezzled over $500,000. And he has no idea that the woman sitting across from him in that boat has already poisoned him. The poison is already in his system, coursing through his blood, shutting down his organs. Diphenhydramine, Benadryl, 70 times the normal dose. Larry Isenburg is a dead man. He just doesn't know it yet. This is where it gets disturbing. Let me tell you about Laurie Isenburg. Born 1953. Poverty so severe her family squatted in abandoned farmhouses, moving constantly, surviving on scraps. She grew up with nothing. But Laurie learned something in that childhood, something dangerous. She learned how to perform, how to smile in a way that made people trust her, how to laugh that giddy, infectious laugh that put everyone at ease, how to present a version of herself that people wanted to believe in. By 19, she gets married to a man called Stephen Barnes, 6 daughters over the years. She throws herself into motherhood. Church every Sunday, lessons about living right, making good choices, getting good grades. Her daughter Amber will later describe their childhood as perfect. But here's the thing. You will think Laurie is building a family, but no, she's building a facade. The marriage to Stephen lasts 2 decades, then it ends, and at 43, Laurie makes a decision. She's going to reinvent herself completely. She moves to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, gets involved in community work, climbs her way up to executive director of the North Idaho Housing Coalition, a nonprofit with access to federal housing funds, money meant for low-income families, like the girl she used to be. And she starts stealing it, systematically, for years. False invoices, fake expenses, shell companies in her daughters' names. Over $500,000 funneled directly into her pockets. But she's not done climbing yet. Enter Larry Isenburg. They meet through the Coeur d'Alene Chamber of Commerce, both active in the business community. Larry is everything Laurie needs: successful, respected, financially secure. A widower in his 60s looking for companionship. More importantly, he's trusting. His own children describe him as a straight arrow, the kind of man who dots every I, crosses every T, someone who believes in honesty above all else. To Larry, Laurie is a miracle, a second chance at love, a woman who overcame poverty to become a pillar of the community. To Laurie, Larry is a mark. They marry, blend their families, 8 children total, 15 grandchildren. They buy a cabin they call our paradise. Friends use the word soulmates. Larry's son, Dean, will later say the marriage seemed absolutely perfect. And that's exactly what Laurie needed everyone to believe. Because while Larry was falling in love, Laurie was planning. Here's the timeline that matters. Federal investigators have been tracking the embezzlement for months, following money trails, interviewing witnesses, building a case. Laurie knows they're coming. She can feel the walls closing in. 4 of her 6 daughters are implicated. Amber, Jessica, Tracy, April. All received stolen money. All will face federal charges. But that's not what terrifies Laurie. What terrifies her is Larry finding out. Think about it. Larry Isenburg, the man who taught his children never to be lazy, never to waste, always to earn. The man who managed every dollar with fierce discipline. When he discovers his wife is a thief, when he learns she's stolen $500,000, when he realizes she's dragged her daughters into federal crimes, he'll leave her, divorce her, cut her off from everything she spent years positioning herself to inherit. His pension, his assets, his life insurance, his legacy, all of it gone. And Laurie Isenburg makes a calculation, a cold, brutal calculation. If Larry discovers the truth, she loses everything. But if Larry dies, she's a grieving widow, inherits everything. The embezzlement becomes a separate issue. Tragic, yes, but not grounds for losing his estate. She just has to make it look like an accident. Let me show you how calculated this was. December 2017, Larry and Laurie are in Florida on their bucket list trip, visiting grandchildren, watching rocket launches, playing the perfect couple. And while Larry sleeps, Laurie is on her laptop. Google searches, drowning, deep water currents, how long does a body stay submerged? She's researching, planning, learning. She's sitting next to him, smiling, holding his hand, while Googling how to make his death look accidental. But there's more. Phone records reveal that in the weeks before February 13, 2018, Larry complained to his doctor about strange symptoms: shaking, foggy thinking, confusion. Laurie had been testing the poison on him, sublethal doses, learning his tolerance, figuring out exactly how much diphenhydramine she'd need to kill him without it being obvious. She was practicing. And then she chose her moment. February 13th, 2018, the day before Valentine's Day, the exact same day federal investigators were set to expose her embezzlement. It wasn't coincidence, it was execution. 5:47 a.m., the boat launches. Larry is excited. He loves mornings like this, the peace, the beauty, time with his wife. The water is calm, the sky is beginning to lighten. Laurie hands him something to drink. Maybe coffee, maybe juice. We'll never know for certain, but it's laced with enough Benadryl to kill 3 men. Minutes pass. Larry starts feeling strange. His vision blurs. His heart races, then slows. His hands shake. He looks at Laurie with confusion. What's happening to me? We know there was a fight. The bloody nose Laurie will later claim came from trying to save him. Investigators conclude it came from this moment, from his final seconds, from him realizing too late what she'd done. And then, his body goes into the water. Picture this. Laurie Isenburg sits in that boat, alone. Her husband's body sinking into 43-degree water below her. And she waits. Not 5 minutes, not 20 minutes. 2 full Hours. Why? Because she's thinking. In water that cold, the body deteriorates faster. Evidence washes away. The narrative becomes simpler. She's rehearsing her story, perfecting her performance. She's making sure that when rescuers arrive, she looks exactly like a devastated wife who tried everything to save her husband. She practices her tears. She inflicts the injury to her nose, evidence of her rescue attempts. She goes over every detail of what she'll say. "We came to watch the sunrise. Something went wrong with the motor. He leaned over to check it. He gave me a strange look, maybe a stroke, and then he fell. I tried to get him. I searched for hours. I was so scared to leave the area." And then, at 7:52 a.m., she makes the call. The performance begins. The search starts immediately. Divers enter the freezing lake. Rescue teams scan the water. Days pass. The community rallies around Laurie, the poor woman, the grieving widow. She gives interviews describing her shock, her devastation. But investigators are already troubled. That 2-hour delay doesn't sit right. Her story shifts slightly with each telling. And then, on March 1st, 2.5 weeks later, Larry's body is recovered. The medical examiner expects drowning. Instead, the toxicology report comes back. Diphenhydramine, 7,100 nanograms per milliliter. For context, a normal dose produces levels around 100. Larry had 70 times the therapeutic amount in his system. His lungs were clear. No water. Larry Isenburg didn't drown. He was dead before he hit the water. Suddenly, every detail takes on new meaning. The romantic sunrise trip, premeditation. The 2-hour delay, staging. The bloody nose, evidence of struggle. And then investigators discover the embezzlement. The motive becomes crystal clear. But they keep digging, and what they find? Text message from Larry's phone, sent after his death, contains an emoji. Everyone who knew Larry confirms he never used emojis, not once, ever. Laurie used them constantly. The altered will, handwritten changes diverting 80% of his estate to her daughters, never legally filed, written in what appears to be her handwriting. The Google searches, drowning, currents, deep water, all while sitting next to him on their Florida vacation. The symptoms Larry reported to his doctor: shaking, confusion, fog. Every piece of the puzzle clicks into place. This wasn't a panicked reaction. This was months of planning. And here's what makes it even more disturbing. While Laurie was planning Larry's murder, while she was Googling drowning methods and testing poison doses, she was still playing the loving wife, still smiling for family photos, still posting on social media about their perfect marriage, still taking him to watch rocket launches and ride airboats. The woman was living two completely separate realities, and Larry never suspected a thing. 2019, Laurie pleads guilty to federal embezzlement charges. 60 months in federal prison, full restitution ordered. Her daughters, 4 of them, face their own charges, but the murder case takes longer. February 2020, exactly 2 years after Larry's death, Laurie is charged with first-degree murder. The prosecution has overwhelming evidence, but there's one gap. They can't prove exactly how she administered the fatal dose. Was it in coffee, food, a drink on the boat? The mechanism remains unclear. 2021, Laurie's legal team makes a move, an Alford plea to second-degree murder.
For those who don't know, an Alford plea is a legal maneuver where you don't admit guilt, but acknowledge the prosecution has enough evidence to convict you. At the sentencing hearing, Laurie speaks. She claims the poisoned drink was meant for herself. She says she was planning to commit suicide that morning because she couldn't face the exposure of the embezzlement. And Larry accidentally drank it by mistake. The judge looks at the evidence. The Google searches about drowning, not suicide. The altered will, prepared before his death. The 2-hour delay, calculated staging. The emoji text from his phone, sent by her. The months of sublethal poisoning, practice.
The judge calls her explanation what it is: implausible, a lie. Larry's daughter Jessica addresses the court. She talks about the permanent hole in her soul, about a father who taught her integrity, about being betrayed by the person he trusted most. Then Laurie's own stepdaughter Amber speaks. She testifies that Larry was a wonderful grandfather to her children, that he treated them with kindness and love, that her mother manipulated everyone. And then she says something that breaks the room. We do not support her, we do not stand by her. Her own daughter, testifying against her. The sentence comes down: life in prison, minimum 30 years before parole eligibility. Combined with her federal sentence, Laurie Isenburg won't be eligible for release until 2050. She'll be 97 years old.